if you've got a neurodivergent brain and you are struggling with a creative thing, or you just want somebody to tell you why your brain is actually awesome for creativity, this video is for you. Today is Family Painting Day. Let's get started. So this first painting I'm doing with my daughter. This is based on a tutorial on a channel called Artwork by S. I am going to put a link to this tutorial down in the description if you want to try this yourself. Why ADHD makes me a great artist. Great being, of course, an extremely subjective word. Like, I'm not Picasso over here, but I'm pretty good at expressing myself and just generally getting things done with my creative projects, whether they are paintings or YouTube videos. I'm going to talk today in general about some noted features of ADHD brains and why they actually lend themselves to a lot of creativity, but in a weird way also hinder your creativity. Let's start with what makes people great at art. The same thing that makes them great at anything. Practice, dedication, devotion, possibly obsession, being driven by an unseen force to do something over and over again, falling in love with an art form or a medium or a concept, wanting to be around it 24 hours a day, wanting to understand everything about it, wanting to know all of its secrets. Does this sound familiar? This is hyperfocus, which is something ADHD brains are very, very prone to. People think artistic ability is something just people are born with. But if you actually go and you ask any person who is super skilled at some really like high value creative skill, like drawing realistically is probably the most obvious example. If you ask anybody who's really skilled at drawing, and I am for sure not personally one of those people, but if you ask them how they got great at this thing, they will always tell you the same thing. It's just practice. They got good at it because they practiced. And I think sometimes people will look at that and they will think, oh, that person must be incredibly disciplined. And they might be, but the truth is they're obsessed. It's not an issue of willpower. Nobody gets good at art if they don't love it. And ADHD people, and though I am not personally diagnosed on the autism spectrum, I think most autistic people that I know fall into this category as well. Boy, do neurodivergent people fall in love with the things that interest us, don't we? It is so easy for my brain to become absolutely absorbed in something I'm interested in. When I feel like painting, can I tell you, I don't just feel like it. There's this thing, it's like, I describe it sometimes as being like a strange fever that comes over me. And I can't do anything else except paint for a while. The same thing happens when I make videos. Hyperfocus is literally my favorite thing about myself. And like all personality traits and quirks, it comes with its downsides. There are some things about hyperfocus that can be really problematic for ADHD or autistic people. But in general, this is something I think you should put in your asset column, not your liability column as a creative person. I think there's really wonderful, magical things about being able to just fall inside of something that you are so interested in. Kind of a general characteristic of ADHD people is that we are non-linear thinkers. This is why I am a painter, not a novelist. We tend to think in a less structured manner than neurotypical people. In most areas of my life, that's an absolute disaster. I was cooking an omelet just now when I randomly decided I needed to walk completely to the other side of my house, as you normally do when you're cooking. When I got to the other side, I discovered a stack of journals had fallen over on the floor next to my bed. Truth be told, that actually happened several days ago. I've just been ignoring them. I picked up the journals and discovered the floor was a little dirty. I pulled out the vacuum cleaner to vacuum up the mess and knocked over a cup of water that had been sitting on the floor because a few days ago I randomly decided to sit down and recarpet the cat tree in the middle of doing something else. If you have ever watched one of my ADHD tips and life hacks videos, you know that I literally have to write down a list of steps for absolutely everything I do, and I have to set a timer for everything. I get so distracted, so off track, and have so many thoughts happening at the same time so easily in day-to-day life, it's not even funny. When I'm doing something like painting and I allow my mind to just kind of unravel, I allow that structure to fall apart a little bit, I often make unexpected, spontaneous connections between ideas that turn into really, really great ideas. For example, I saw an Instagram reel of this fashion show, and I watched it over and over and over again because I was just having an overwhelmed, overstimulated, neurodivergent moment where I needed something repetitive to soothe me. It's not like a super healthy thing for your brain all the time, but one of the things I love about Instagram is that reels will automatically loop over and over again. I will often find like a dancer or a painter or just somebody doing something really creative on Instagram, and I will just watch one of their reels over and over again. That's what I was doing with this reel. This is the Spring Summer collection by Christian Cowan. He did a lot of costume stuff for Sam Smith's Gloria tour. That's how I found out about him. Here they are being a power couple together at the Met Gala last year. But I sat and watched this reel over and over again, and there was something about this whole vibe that really spoke to me, and I kept staring at it until my brain saw this painting. I actually get a lot of painting ideas from high fashion. I'm often very, very inspired by mediums I don't work in at all. I get inspired by dancer. Sometimes I hear a song and it just makes me want to paint something. But that kind of non-linear brain-making random connection things can be a really positive thing in your creativity. Next thing I want to talk about is divergent thinking. This sounds like the same thing, but it isn't quite the same as nonlinear thinking. I think of this as like my thoughts kind of look like a spider. It's like I start with one point and my brain has a capacity to see many, many possibilities from one starting point. In day-to-day life, again, this is sort of a problem. Give me a simple problem and I promise you, I will find a way to overthink that thing to death. You think you want some pancakes? Oh, I could just make some pancakes, right? Wrong. What kind of pancakes? Are we gonna have healthy whole wheat pancakes? Are we gonna have dessert pancakes? Are we putting fruit in these pancakes? What kind of fruit? Are we putting blueberries in them? Strawberries? What about peaches? Have you ever tried peaches and pancakes? Is that a thing? Can we do that? What about apples? Can we make apple pancakes? Is that really a pancake anymore? Are we making like an apple cake at that point? What kind of an oil are we cooking these pancakes in? Are we gonna use like vegetable oil? Because you know that doesn't have a lot of flavor. Are we gonna get like a vegan margarine or a butter? What about olive oil? Can you use olive oil? Are you making a savory pancake at that point? Do we need to like put some vegetables in it? Are we making crepes now? Wouldn't crepes be better for this? Like, you don't know how hardcore I can overthink. And obviously that's a problem, but we can also see when you're making an art project, having thoughts that blossom or bloom or spider out in lots of directions can be really fantastic. It's a double-edged sword because The problem is it can also severely hinder your productivity. It can paralyze you and stop you from ever getting started. And if you were waiting for the point, this is it. If you are an ADHD person, you are having a hard time getting started on your art project or any project at all, this is probably the problem you're having. We can't get started because we are paralyzed by too many thoughts. Here is my best advice to you. This is what works for me every time. Let's look at that painting again. My brain was all over the place when I got this idea. That's why I was soothing myself by watching this Instagram reel over and over again. When I'm looking at this as a piece of art, I'm not looking at any particular article of clothing or a style of clothing that's here. I'm looking at the whole vibe. I'm looking at like the whole performance and the cityscape and just kind of the sexiness of New York City at night and all of these people together, and there's like kind of a weird story that goes along. Like, I'm looking at this whole performance. What is it that is making this so soothing? What appeals to me about this is the limited color palette. Everything here is black and silver and this really nice cobalt blue. Something lit up in my head over this blue color. When you are having chaos brain, limiting yourself to a specific set of rules can paradoxically be extremely freeing. I set out to paint a painting using black and white and cobalt blue, and that was it. Those were the rules. And once I had the rules, I did not have to stress about trying to decide on anything else. Limit yourself to start with. Make some rules and don't break your rules. But Kat, I have a million ideas. I have too many ideas is the problem. How do I pick something? How do I know what's a good idea? Good question. How do you know what to pick? Pick something at random if you have to. Literally do this. Every idea you have about this project you want to get started on, write out your ideas on scraps of paper and put them in a hat and pull out something at random. Because the truth is, what you start with does not matter. What matters is that you start. I typically will resist the urge to start veering off of my path until I'm about 75 or 80% done, or feel like I'm about 75 or 80% done with a painting. Then maybe if I'm feeling a little stuck, I'll start bending rules here and there. I'm not saying be super rigid and be super disciplined forever. Having some fluidity in your process is extremely important for creativity, obviously. But get down the bones first. Get down the basic structure of your creation before you let your mind go. Creativity is not just doing whatever comes into your head. It's called creativity because you are creating something. You are bringing something into the world. And everything we create takes some effort and some discipline. Listen, all creative endeavors have moments of being a drag. This is the biggest problem that ADHD folks have with our creativity, I think. We are forever chasing that dopamine. You know, we start doing things because they're fun, and we have this idea that art is supposed to be 100% fun all the time because we have been conditioned to believe that art is frivolous and that our art is not valuable. Have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered that what you create in this world actually matters and has value, and that it's actually important for you to create it? So when we have a project going on and it stops being fun for a while, we quit. But here's the thing, it always stops being fun for a while. It always gets tedious. And what I find for myself is when I allow that tediousness to just exist, when I don't fight with it, I move through those boring parts, those tedious parts, those parts that feel kind of discouraging. And if I just allow myself to go through it, it always ends up getting fun again. Also, there is something about rote labor that is really good for our brains. There is something about repetitive tasks that is very calming and just gives our minds the space to process our thoughts and our feelings about things. But the truth is, art is work, and that's okay. If you love doing something, then it's important for you to do that thing because you love it. Like, that is reason enough. You should be creating things you love creating. If you love doing something, do it like it's your job. So what if you're not getting paid? Money isn't everything. And you already know that. We all already know it. Why don't we start acting like we know? Start creating something that matters to you. Stop treating things that matter to you like they aren't important just because they aren't monetized, and sometimes they're a lot of work.
And I'm so creatively weird right now.
You know, create whatever you want, baby. This is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And I hate myself.
Who doesn't?
I'm expressing my feelings, Gerald. These are my feelings.
These are your feelings? Oh, God. You need a therapist. You are a disgrace to the art community and shall never, ever be loved by anyone at all. And you lose all your followers.
Oh, my God.